Welcome back to the Underhand Free Throws Playoff Preview two-part podcast with Ian and Simon. I'm Ian.
And I'm Simon.
And we're just going to get straight back into doing our playoff picks. Hopefully you already caught part one. If not, join us for this basketball fan fiction of matchups that might not happen. But I think in the East likely will. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see where we're at, but we're just going to get right back into it.
Yeah, we promised to be a little bit more exciting in the second part. We had a lot of identical picks for the first round, at least.
You think that we have the opportunity to get spicy? All right, let's see. All right, let's go back down to the bottom of the Western bracket.
We got Grizz Warriors coming up. The rivalry, one of the best rivalries in the NBA as of today. These teams hate each other. Dylan Brooks hates Draymond Green. Draymond Green is kind of just dismissive in return. I don't know how much actual animosity there is.
I mean, you say dismissive, but he did a whole monologue. He recorded a whole monologue on Dylan Brooks.
There's less passion and energy in Draymond's response, so he's more just essentially trying to sun them.
But in my mind, when an NBA player does that, it's one thing to mouth off in an interview when someone asks you a question. It's another thing to be I'm making my own content. I'm and it reminds me of Jimmy Butler with the scheduled interview after ripping the heart out of his own teammates back in Minnesota and just being and I got an interview really lined up. Tell me that you don't care, Jimmy. Tell me you don't care, Draymond, when you're just I need to record a monologue. Put it he wrote it out in advance too. He was reading it off a script. So anyways, I like the animosity is definitely there. Memphis in theory is going up against they've pissed off everybody, but the Lakers and the Warriors are definitely at the top of their list, so they get to continue their campaign of hate. Grizzlies against the world in this theoretical matchup against the Warriors. I don't know. What do you think about this? I don't think we should spend quite as much time in these series because they are theoretical. All our analysts goes to waste if Sacramento or LA has anything to say about that. But
the main thing I have to say is I don't know how well prepared Golden State is for this series. And I know Golden State closed out the season pretty strong. The Grizzlies are really good. And I think even without Steven Adams, I think that's being underrated a little bit. I think the biggest thing, my first initial observation, just looking at Grizzlies-Warriors, that potential matchup, is I think Ja might legitimately score 40 points a game. I think that's a realistic outcome.
You don't think
they're going to for the first two games in their series last year, and got hurt in Game 3, which the Grizzlies probably would have won if he remained in, and the Grizzlies would have gone up 2-1 in the series. I personally believe, I know no way to prove this is all conjecture, but I do think the Grizzlies would have beat the Warriors in the playoffs last year if Ja did not get hurt in Game 3.
I think at the very least, not enough people realize how close that came to maybe happening.
The Grizzlies almost won even without Ja, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah. I struggle with the Grizzlies because they've they've kept it up all they just kept kind of winning all year despite big credit to Coach Taylor Jenkins. I do just look at this team that went up against the Warriors. Obviously the Warriors are a lot worse, but I just the depletion of the front court has just been almost complete. No Adams, no Brandon Clark, Slow-Mo's on another team, and I don't trust any. I need to see some of Memphis's backups in a playoff environment, so I'm a little bit hesitant on this one. In theory, Golden State doesn't need the rim scoring. I get it,
but Golden State's not a team that's gonna kill you on the offensive glass if you're not playing bigs. They're not a team that's gonna I don't know if they're the right team to really punish a team for missing their starting center. If they have a somewhat competent backup,
Yeah.
On the flip side, Golden State doesn't come out of their 4 and 5 positions.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that the edge for them is that they don't need to score at the rim as much as some other teams do. And that's Memphis's forte. So, they're going to be bombing away from 3 and seeing what Memphis can do. The other thing is that Jaren Jackson's actually pretty great out there as well. Jaren Jackson, I mean, I know that we talked about this in the awards podcast, but he's got the he's got that Ben Wallace, like, I can flash out to the perimeter and blow that up and still get back in the paint. Like, you can't punish me for being aggressive. He covers more ground than I think, even more than Giannis. He covers insane amounts of ground so quickly. So you're going Memphis, are you?
I am picking Memphis. Yeah. I do think Ja Morant will be the best player on the floor, at least from a statistical perspective. I don't know. That's one thing I've just heard a lot of analysis about Golden State where it kind of boils down to, like, well, how is the other team going to stop Curry? You know, like, we know Golden State has all these flaws with perimeter defense and effort given in road games, but how are you going to stop Steph? Like, Steph's going to go off and be great and get his, but I do think Ja's probably going to score the most points in this series and have the biggest overall offensive impact. So,
yeah. Again, they've got that offense and defense thing where they're like, are they going to play Gary Payton and Dante DiVincenzo, or are they going to play Jordan Poole? And I think it's an awkward choice for a team to make. I think they've got the tools, but maybe they're going to have some awkward lineups. I'm going Golden State because this is a theoretical matchup, anyways, and I want us to have a little bit of variety here.
We got to pick a series different at some point.
Exactly. I'm just doing this for the drama, but I'd be rooting for I think Golden State is. I take Golden State's struggles in the regular season very seriously.
Yeah.
And I do think I'm like not going to be surprised if Golden State gets knocked out in the first or second round, even though a lot of people are being like, kind of have them up there in the title contention picture. Like, I think this team is long in the tooth, and like, again, if they just come out losing road games, they're not going to have home court advantage in any of these series. So if they're a joke on the road, they're going out in the first round. And
well,
if not,
the other thing is, Golden State's been a good home team all year, even though they've sucked on the road. But even so, even if you look at Golden State's net rating just in their home games, just in those 41 games where they've been good, the Grizzlies have still been better than that. So the Grizzlies, during the regular season at least, have been a better team than even the best version of Golden State. So
agreed.
Okay,
just making
let's
this
go.
pick to be different. All right, Nuggets versus Suns.
Nuggets,
you start
Suns.
off with this one because I feel like you've had feelings about this one all year, and it was even before the Durant trade, and the Durant trade probably shifts that even more.
It's hard because it's hard to know how much to rate the importance of depth in the playoffs where these teams are playing 7-8 man lineups. And I feel like
who's
Nuggets,
shallower, Denver or Phoenix? That's like we're talking about the two shallowest teams in the playoffs. Maybe
they both are pretty have a lot of depth issues. I think the one thing with Phoenix though is, they are shallow, but they have the ability to keep like two All NBA ish. I'm not going to give Aiden that merit.
No, he's not All NBA ish. No,
they still have the ability to keep two All NBA level players in the floor at all times, and Ayton, who when he's locked in and
Chris
engaged,
Paul's not All NBA either.
Yes, well, he has been historically, right? This is a veteran player who, if he can step it up and play at his peak level, whatever that is, can.
What I will agree to, at least in spirit, in that is that like a lineup built around Chris Paul can still sort of figure things out, and that's more than Denver just lacking a number of good players. They have not figured out a way to put a non-Jokic lineup that knows what they're doing.
Yeah.
Where I feel like a Chris Paul lineup, it's not going to be like there's no All NBA talent there, but like Chris Paul is going to be able to figure things out a little bit more than like apparently Jamal Murray can, or obviously Michael Porter Jr. So it's like the Nuggets couldn't prove that all season. They had one stretch where they found a non-Jokic lineup that worked, and then they immediately ruined it at the trade deadline. No, it's like they had a solid like 10-game stretch pre-deadline. Yeah, they put on Canchar and Zeke Naji.
They did beat the Warriors in a game late in the season that the Warriors needed to win and were trying to win without Jokic. That's what I was referring to. But that's a one-game sample size.
I think that leads us to a interesting question, though, because the Nuggets basically sat out the last 20 games, 15 games of the season. Like they took their foot off the pedal. they clearly were interested in trying to figure out getting some reps of non-Jokic lineups. They sat Jokic a whole bunch of games. Even when he was out there, they played him less minutes, and they weren't trying to win games once they sort of like got the 1 seed mostly locked down. They kind of chilled. Do you believe that, or do you believe that the Nuggets really tailed off at the end and they're like not like, you know, that they should be very vulnerable and scared going into these playoffs because of how much the end of the season went for them?
I don't necessarily believe either. I think it's a combination of both. I think they have a lot of very inconsistent players that are very up and down. They really struggle to have everyone play well every single night collectively. And yeah, there's I mean, they rested Jokic a lot late in the year. They rested Murray. They rested a lot of those guys who were playing heavy minutes. So, you know, obviously at the very end of the season where they're losing every game, that's more of a rest factor. But, you know, even prior to that, the one thing that I really struggle with the Nuggets is just it's the consistency. Like Jamal Murray doesn't ever play well for 4 consecutive quarters. Like he'll have an explosive first quarter and then kind of not do a lot for the rest of the game, or he'll kind of not do a lot for the first half of the game and then be good in the second half. I think that's probably my main concern with them.
And so on top of that, he'll do the Dinwiddie thing and take over in the fourth quarter, but not hit shots. Like he's like, despite him not being like a really consistent source of offense, like no one gives him the memo that he's not a consistent source of offense when crunch time happens. Because no one frustrates me more in terms of like you play with Nikola Jokic and you never pass to him on the screen and roll. It's like Jokic passes to you in the screen and roll, but it never goes the other way. It's always a pull up with Murray, and sometimes that's falling, and sometimes that's clanking off the back rim.
Yeah. Michael Porter Jr. still struggles with just defensive intensity, consistency issues. When he's locked in and focused, he's okay, but that's not something that happens on a possession-by-possession basis. And although I still believe the Suns are a flawed team, I still have some questions about them. I'm going to pick the Suns. I just feel like there's more guys on the roster that I can trust. You know, Aaron Gordon and Jokic I feel great about. Can Jamal Murray
I feel great
Porter
about KCP
Jr.
too.
Oh, yeah. KCP, definitely. Although, you know, his shooting, I feel like, has tailed off a little bit this year. But
I'm not so invested in the shooting.
Solid defender.
Yeah, I just think he might be the best screen navigator in the NBA. And I think that I get in this matchup, I think that that's going to be a thing that really pays off against all those, like, you know, they live for, like, horns and pin downs in Phoenix with Devin Booker sort of flying, and being able to just attach KCP to him is like I think a nice little edge for Denver there. Like I think he's gonna that's like a nice bankable consistent edge that they can depend on. Like KCP is gonna like fight like hell around screens.
One final thing I want to bring up is just the Ayton factor with Jokic. Jokic is still going to play very well. He's still going to, you know, be an incredibly impactful player in this series. But I do think just the physicality of Ayton matches up so well with Jokic that there is some possibility that he can start to kind of wear Jokic down a little bit over the course of this series, which I don't think is necessarily going to impact Jokic's offense that much. But, you know, the defense might start to slip as we get later in the series.
I mean, the name of the game with Denver.
I see you have the Nuggets.
I have the Nuggets. I trust just the solidness of this team. I think Phoenix still has. I don't understand. Like after those 4 players, I'm unsure what I'm getting from everybody else, and I'm unsure whether they're going to be able to find workable lineups in terms of like they're going to play 2 non-shooters on the floor a lot, or 2 bad shooters on the floor a lot, and I think that's going to give their opponents' coaches some juicy stuff to attack. And then if they want to put more shooting on the floor, they have to do so at the total expense of their defense, which is not something that I think is safe to do against Denver. I think the name of the game against Jokic is turn him into a scorer, you know, like have him average 30, 10, and 5 instead of 25, 10, and 10. And I don't...
He's getting those 10 assists either way.
Well, but like historically in the playoffs, when on those undermanned teams, they've been able to sort of like guard Jokic one-on-one and take away everything else. I don't think Phoenix is set up to do that. And I don't like, I know that Ayton did a commendable job against him 3 years ago or 2 years ago. I haven't seen really a lot of that Ayton since. And Jokic is also just a lot better. People keep using really old playoff projections for Jokic, and like he's gotten a little bit better every year. And I think that I mean, Phoenix has all the tools to pull off this. Like, they've got the high end tools to pull off this series victory. But I'm sticking with the solid 5-man lineup of the Nuggets.
I like it. Okay, we have two completely different Western Conference Finals. I have the Grizz and the Suns, and you have the Nuggets and Warriors.
Hey, we get to talk about more theoretical series then.
Yeah. All right, let's go East. We have the Sixers and the Celtics.
This is going to be fun. This is going to be like, again, what I was saying about that, the insanity of how good that pick and roll ISO hybrid offense is in Philadelphia, going up against a really versatile defense that is well built to mess with that is going to be. And I feel like we have a very, very high chance of seeing this series. It would be a total shocker to not see Boston versus Philly in the second round here. So I think we can talk about this like it's real.
Yeah, we can. So my initial thought, believe it or not, is going to be Philly's transition defense. It's a bugaboo that has continued to really haunt them this year. When teams push it hard in transition, Philly doesn't get back and they get scored on a lot, which I think is one thing that's. Their defense has been good. I think they finished the season in the top 10.
Yeah, I think they're 9th.
But that is the one thing that prevents them from being like an elite defense. You got the backcourt with Harden and Maxey, or Harden and Maxey's not starting, is he?
Maxey's been coming off the bench. They start Melton.
Okay.
They do mix it up, but like they can't play defense with Harden Maxey backcourt. So
yeah.
And Maxey's like, he can come in and really rip up bench lineups. I don't know if he can rip up the Celtics bench lineups as well, but it's always great to have that burst of speed, because it does seem like all the best defenders in the NBA these days, like very few of them are actually that quick of foot in terms of the guards. But we're talking like, Marcus Smart and Derek White, like that's their thing isn't being like the quickest foot speed guys in the league. So, like I know that last year Fred VanVleet was injured, so it's not like a great example, but it was like a little bit just shocking how Toronto, this team of solid defenders, just had no one to throw at Tyrese Maxey. Like he just ripped into at least on his good games, he could just rip into the paint whenever he wanted. And I think he'll have that opportunity again. Like he could have a big series against Boston. I think he's an X factor to look out for.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I just think Boston is so much more solid. All the things you're saying about Philly, like this is a really, really powerful team. There's a lot going on there, like really high end, just sort of offensive firepower. That's a lot to navigate, but and their defense is good, but has all these holes. And to get their best offense, they need to sacrifice their best defense. Joel Embiid has concerns with both his endurance and his the ability to draw him out of the paint, which is something Boston is definitely going to be able to do firmly with Al Horford. Whenever they aren't playing Rob Williams, they don't need to play Rob Williams. If they don't, Al Horford has typically survived against Embiid, if not thrived. I don't know if that will be the same case this year, but they're not hopeless in that regard. They've got extra big bodies on the bench, and I just think there's no wing defense in Philly. That's going to be they can only put DeAnthony Melton in one spot and PJ Tucker in one spot, and PJ Tucker played 20 minutes a game all year and is very, very old and can't play any offense at all, especially not in this system. So I think Jason Tatum is going to have minutes where there's no one on that team who can guard him, and Jaylen Brown is going to be the same. If you want to guard both those guys, Malcolm Brogdon's going to come off the bench and pick and roll you to death. I just feel like they're going to be able to consistently get what they want offensively against Philly. I think Philly's also going to score well against Boston, but they're just going to be these holes in the game that Boston fills in.
Yeah, I think with PJ Tucker, you kind of get diminishing returns as the series goes on. I just can't get that image out of my head of him guarding KD when he was a member of the Milwaukee Bucks a couple of years ago, and he had some pretty good success against KD in game one of the series, and then it just slowly started to drop off as KD got used to kind of his physicality and his grabbing and tugging and pushing, and I think the refs got a little bit more attuned to learning how to call that matchup as well, and KD's performances just got better and better over the series, and at the end PJ Tucker was still guarding him, but it wasn't really providing much of an impact there. So he'll probably guard Jason Tatum a lot. and D'Anthony Melton will probably be on Jaylen Brown, but I think both of those guys are going to be just overmatched physically. They're both at pretty significant height disadvantages, strength disadvantages, and Jayson Tatum is going to be able to pull up over PJ Tucker for the mid-range or the step-back three pretty much whenever he wants and not face a whole lot of resistance. It's more just like Jayson Tatum isn't going to be able to get open shots, but he's going to be able to get plenty of those like mildly contested jump shots that he thrives on making.
I do think, though, that the difference between KD and Jayson Tatum is that if you turn Jayson Tatum into purely a pull-up jump shooter, it's just okay. It's usually like he in the playoffs at least. Like we'll see if he's taken another leap. Like this is a big check on Jayson Tatum's progress as like a franchise level offensive player. In this series, I think is like where all eyes are going to be on that, because historically turning Jayson Tatum into a jump shooter, it's like he's a slightly below average efficiency. Like he's a survive not thrive kind of level player, where KD you give him pull-ups, that's the lead offense. Like KD's just very happy to do that all game and really, really, really hurt you. So it's not exactly a win to force KD away from the basket like that. If you take away Jayson Tatum's foul drawing and rim attacks, the offense becomes a little bit more pedestrian. Again, at least historically, he improved on those in the regular season this year. So now's the time to find out if that's real. And I think an ancient PJ Tucker is like a fun test for that, because at least the effort's going to be there. But it's not. I think the days of PJ Tucker playing 40 minutes a night for a playoff contender are probably over. But I mean, he's a tough guy, so we'll see.
Doc Rivers is gonna try.
yeah.
He's not gonna take him out of the game.
Yeah, so. We'll see, because they kept him well preserved throughout the season. He didn't play big minutes, so we'll see if that
I just think I get that PJ Tucker, doesn't give you really much offensively. As the game wears down, like he's just okay defensively, solid, not going to kill you, but not necessarily a super high upside too. But like it gets dark when you take him off the floor. I mean, their wing depth is Daniel House.
I'm
not sure what you're doing there.
Yeah, Tobias Harris sometimes survives man up matchups. Like I don't think Tobias Harris is an awful defender. I've seen him sometimes look really good. I don't think he has much defensive versatility, and he's not much of a help defender. But yeah, we're not looking at some really strong wing defense in Philadelphia, and I think that will be a huge edge for Boston. And you're gonna get Jaylen Brown doing that thing at the same time. So
I think Boston's big defensive or offensive advantage is going to be open corner threes for guys like Horford and Marcus Smart. I think they're going to get a lot of wide open corner threes. Yeah. So it's just a matter of how well those guys can hit those. Marcus Smart has struggled, especially late in the season, with his 3-point consistency. Al Horford's still very solid, but ultimately, I do think Embiid's going to have a good series. He's going to hit his, or he's going to get his. I'm sure Embiid will be scoring 30 a game. I just, we got both of us obviously have real questions about Philly's ability to guard wings, Philly's role players' ability to consistently contribute, and Boston just has a more well-rounded team.
Yeah. Oh, we said Daniel House, but we should remember they do now have Jalen McDaniels, who is, I think, he's an upgrade in that regard. He's just a little bit. He's taller.
He's taller and longer, but that's another guy who really struggles to stay focused defensively and
yeah. He's not quite his brother.
Man. Yeah.
Yeah.
Are we calling this one the same way?
We are calling this one the same way.
Okay, let's talk about Milwaukee Cleveland, which is our last pick of the. Is this the semifinals that we're in right now?
Yeah.
I always get semifinals and quarterfinals mixed up.
Whenever someone says that, I have to. Yeah, I'm the exact same.
Yeah. What's the difference between a semi and a quarter?
Just depends on how you carve it up, I guess.
Yeah. Okay.
This is an interesting series.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I mean, we got a lot of. We got the two defensive the preeminent defensive twin towers of the NBA colliding together. This is a clash of some titans in terms of just pure size. Brook Lopez and Giannis Antetokounmpo going up against Jared Allen and Evan Mobley. And then we got that firepower in the backcourt with Cleveland, and then like potential all NBA point guard. I hope Jrue Holiday. We'll see if Chris Middleton's in shape. But this is going to be a big defensive series. It's going to feel like we're back in the early 2000s with this one.
Yeah, I'm excited. I think Evan Mobley has really come on the second half of the year. His offensive numbers have been a little bit better. His defense has just been like monstrous the second half of the year. There's an interview where JB Bickerstaff gave where I forget who it was, but they're basically asking him like, how do you design your defensive system? And he was basically just like, it's Mobley. We kind of try to funnel everything through Mobley. He's kind of our, he's our main guy. He's guarding the best perimeter players. He's coming back and protecting the rim. He's really taken like leaps and bounds as kind of like a weak side rim protector this year, where he can like recover and do a little bit of that Jaren Jackson role. But yeah, he's like so versatile. I mean, I think Jaren Jackson is a good comparison to Mobley defensively, just because I'm not really sure who else to compare him to. There isn't necessarily like someone that really matches that style well in the NBA. I guess Giannis would be the other guy.
Yep.
You kind of had some questions about Giannis's actual ability to guard the perimeter earlier this year. I do think Mobley is a little bit more mobile than Giannis is. His feet don't get stuck in cement blocks quite as easily as Giannis when he's kind of guarding those quicker dudes. I think his reaction timing is a little bit better than Giannis's, which is crazy to say, but I don't know. I'm really excited to see Mobley and Giannis and how that matches up.
Yeah, I think comparing, I think those three are the players you compare in terms of their bigs that are quick enough to play the power forward position, and not be a solo big if they don't have to be, which it's a huge bonus to have those guys, which means you can put a second rim protector on the floor and have one of the best defenses in the NBA, and that's what all these teams we're talking about are. I do think what Mobley compared to Giannis and Jaren Jackson, well, he might lack a little bit of ground coverage, and especially like vertically, like he's not kind of like sweeping in for quite as many contests, but he definitely makes he's got a huge advantage on Giannis in terms of like hip flexibility. He can just change it. He can just pivot his hips a lot easier, and that's why he's such a better perimeter defender in a very visible way. And then putting him up against Jaren Jackson Jr., we're just talking about a player who just is so much more mistake free. Like Evan Mobley just plays perfect defense. There's so many possessions where
he was doing that Mobley from just game one of his rookie season too. It's just innate with him. Yeah.
And it's just getting to the point where on a single possession, he can like stop the offense at 3 or 4 different junction points. You just see him put his fingerprints off everything. Like there's a lot of like genius level instincts that he's really tapping into here, and he's got the length and mobility to just like create a really terrifying defender. So yeah, in terms of the individual matchup, him versus Giannis is interesting. Giannis is a much stronger player, and he's going to be able to power through Mobley a little bit, I think, and that raw speed. But Mobley is going to be able to make things interesting, and waiting behind him is Jared Allen. So it's not like it's just his responsibility alone. Like that's just there's a lot to jump over if you want to get to the hoop against Cleveland. It's a very scary paint defense, paint protection.
Yeah, no, I think and I think the advantage with Cleveland is they have those two really awesome dynamic guards. Like it's not just up to Mitchell. Darius Garland had a sneaky under the radar, like incredible season, both as a scorer and as a playmaker. And the thing with Milwaukee is they have one guy to defend 2 players on the other team, right? Because like Jrue Holiday is an incredible defender. Like both me and you think of Jrue Holiday very highly. We both had him in our all NBA teams when we made those picks. Both of us love Jrue Holiday. I feel about as far removed from that as possible about Grayson Allen. So
you didn't put Grayson Allen on your All-NBA team?
I don't have Grayson Allen on any of my teams, not even my schoolyard pickup team. At least if I have the chance to choose from other NBA players.
They're all at your schoolyard. That's nice. Yeah, I mean, I'm not quite as down though overall on Milwaukee's backcourt defense. I don't think it's just Jrue Holiday. I think that Javon Carter has had a really good defensive season at the point of attack. You know, I think every now and then they dust off Wesley Matthews for some wing defense, and he still can give it in bursts. Pat Connaughton has like not really had a great season, but has historically been able to sort of chip in. Yeah, really I wonder if that will continue in the playoffs
because they need him badly.
Yeah, especially with Chris Middleton, just like not the health being so uncertain there. The wing rotation is definitely a big question for them. I just think at least they've got options. We'll see. They just need like 2 of those options to pop to form a rotation. We'll see what happens in the playoffs because there's also a chance that none of them pop. I think it's a shame that they, gave up on the Marcin Beauchamp experience early. I get he's a rookie playing on a contending team, but I would have liked to see some of that. And yeah, because it's very easy to imagine late in the playoffs Milwaukee looking shallow on the wings or looking like they're having a hard time figuring out lineups. However, I'll give their wing rotation a slight advantage over their opponent in this one. If we're talking about a team that doesn't really have wings, the Cavs also qualify.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's another like wing guy that they gave up on was Jordan Nwora. They traded him away, which I get it because of the defensive concerns, but he was a guy who could shoot and had real size. So I kind of wish they stuck with him a little bit longer.
Yeah, I mean,
but just because it's such a position of need for them.
It was keeping him or Grayson Allen, and Grayson Allen, for all his warts, has provided a little bit more consistency
much more dynamic offensive player.
Yeah,
I think one of the things with the Bucks is, like they always do, they try to keep their starters in the low 30s minutes wise. They try to really not overplay their hand in the regular season. So, Drew Holiday, Giannis, Brook Lopez, these are all guys who are going to jump from like playing 30, 31 minutes a game to like 35, 36, 37 minutes a game. So maybe the depth, like major, incredible depth issues that the Bucks have, in my estimation at least, are a little bit less serious in the playoffs.
Yeah. The biggest question I have with Cleveland is just like, why didn't they win more games this year? We're talking about a team that was
execution.
Yeah, and I don't really understand that, the way they're built with Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell being so dynamic as self-creators and playmakers for others. Is it just that there's not enough shooting on the floor with their 2 bigs to like really make it happen? That's kind of like limiting them offensively, because we're talking about a team that was like the second best team in the league by net rating, and they won 51 games instead of 61 games. Like, and then you look at you dig into the stats a little bit, and it's like this team. I mean, amazing defensively. When you look at the offensive side of things, like they're just kind of not really very good at anything. They're just they're solid. They're not bad at anything, but they're just nothing really that pops. Like, when you're just getting into the nitty gritty of like, does this team generate free throws? Like, nah, not really. Like, do they dominate the offensive glass? Like, no. Like, do they score a ton in transition? Like, nah. Like they're just meh in so many categories. So this team, like, they're just very solid and not spectacular this year. They're just sort of like, they're really, really good, and they have the clear strengths of their offensive guards and their defensive bigs, but they're sort of like capped in solid land until they unlock a couple other lineups. And I just don't know if that's gonna, being that solid is gonna quite do it against Milwaukee.
Yeah, I mean that's the real question. I think a lot of it could be a spacing issue. I mean, playing 2 to 3 non-shooters, depending on how you classify a Coro, that can make things pretty gunky in the fourth quarter. And I think Donovan Mitchell has tried to take a lot of the fourth quarter burden on himself, and he's generated a lot of pretty below average to poor quality shots. But like, I'm not necessarily sure what other options he had based on the personnel that are actually out there. So yeah, I think that's the main question I have with the Cleveland Cavaliers. I think it's a totally fair question to have. And as much as I really wanted to pick the upset here, I would love to. I just think the Bucks are going to be better at executing down the stretch. They've been here before, obviously. So I do think we're going to see a rematch between the Bucks and Celtics in the Eastern Conference Finals. I made your pick again. I'm so sorry.
You're telepathically controlling me, but you know what? It's working because I have the same pick as well. So,
okay.
I feel the same as you. Like I'm really excited about the Cavs, but I just think they're still missing some ingredient there before I feel good about them beating like really, really high end teams in a playoff series. So, I mean, prove me wrong, Cavs. I'm rooting for it, but I'm not predicting it today.
I think it'll be close. I think it'll be a good series, but
yeah.
We both have the identical Eastern Conference finals here.
So now we just need to talk about 3 different theoretical fan fiction matches for the Eastern and Western Conference Finals. Do you want to start with talking about the idea of Memphis and Phoenix?
Oh, I'd love to.
All right. Very, very heavy contrast of styles here. We got team rim versus team mid-range.
Yes, and I also think we have team old versus team young.
Yeah.
And I think
Phoenix.
I think this is probably roughly. We haven't seen Chris Paul hold up for an entire playoff series in a very long time.
You're going to do it, aren't you? You're going to pick Memphis to make the finals.
Even
I'm
when
smelling it.
Even when the Suns made the finals against the Bucks in 2021, like Chris Paul was, he was running on fumes in the finals, especially late in that series.
Oh yeah.
And then obviously last year he gets injured.
He was running on fumes in the first round.
Yeah, that's pretty true. There's this crazy thing with Phoenix, and I'm not sure if it's coaching, I'm not sure if it's personnel, but the way that they kind of just looked overwhelmed against the Dallas Mavericks as the Mavericks started to come back in the Western Conference semis last year was, I think, pretty alarming. Just the ability of a team to kind of change the pace to such a degree, and Phoenix to just look very unsure on how to react to that. And I think we're about to see a major change of pace between the 2 prior opponents that Phoenix is going to be facing against the Clippers and the Nuggets, and then the Grizzlies are just like a 100% U-turn almost from those 2 teams in the way that they play. It's not all pace and space. It's very aggressive, attack the rim, get DeAndre Ayton in foul trouble, and get Bismack Biyombo out there early in the game, and then take advantage of that.
I think when you want to build your team when you want to build your defense around rim protection, and you only have one rim protector on the floor, you're just vulnerable. And we've seen it over and over again. And teams, I feel like it's an under-acknowledged thing, because people talk about Phoenix's meltdown. Phoenix's meltdown was defensively, they lost any ability to do anything, because it's not hard to move one rim protector out of the paint. It's like there's a million ways you can do it. So if their defense needs DeAndre Ayton to be in the paint, because they can't play DeAndre Ayton and Bismack Biyombo together and still play offense, you can move DeAndre Ayton over here and then just attack all day. So, you can be like a team like the Clippers, whose defense is held up in the playoffs because they don't rely on rim protection. They rely on it's not as high end of a defense, but at least you're not taking that away from them. I think Phoenix, it's a lot more it's still set up like that. Now we're comparing a Phoenix team that did not have Kevin Durant, so I think on one hand it is like a bit silly to not acknowledge like, hey, this team has Kevin Durant. That's a massive boost. Also, Kevin Durant is perfectly capable of behaving like a secondary rim protector. And I think Kevin Durant's defense in any of these playoff series is going to be a huge X factor. If he's able to share that back line with DeAndre Ayton or Bismack Biyombo and, keep things humming and keep things structurally sound. That's something they didn't have last year with Jay Crowder in that position, because Jay Crowder does things as a defensive horizontal body with his hustle and strength and motor, but absolute zero as a rim protector, where Kevin Durant is basically the opposite style defender. Like he's not a great horizontal defender. He's not a very smart rotator or anything, or a particularly active, engaged defender, but he's got a lot of length you can stick on the back line, and I think that's a huge X factor for Phoenix that will determine whether they win these series against Denver, against Memphis, against Golden State, whoever it is. I think that matters a lot. It really sucks that we didn't get Golden State and Phoenix on the same side of the bracket. I would have loved Durant to play his old team.
Hey, you could have picked Phoenix. I wasn't stopping you.
Yeah, but they're so far apart in the bracket. I would have had to pick both those teams to burst through. You're right. I could have done it. I could have made that happen, and we could have lived out that drama here on this podcast.
But yes, I am picking the Grizzlies. I'm picking the best home team in the NBA. I'm picking one of the highest energy and hustle teams in the NBA. I'm also kind of picking against Chris Paul's health, and Kevin Durant's legs, and I'm also a little bit picking against Phoenix's coaching, to be completely honest.
Yeah,
I think Memphis is going to have a pretty significant advantage, just with their willingness to adjust and attack Phoenix's weaknesses and be a game ahead of their opponent in that regard.
Yeah. Hey, Memphis's janky front court has not stopped them from getting to the NBA Finals in Simon Land. I like this pick. I think this pick is fun, and I think it's representative of how wide open the West is. Like, no one should feel really that good about any team coming out of the West. I think, like, 4, 5, 6 team. I don't know. 7 teams, I think, legitimately have a chance to come out of the West. Maybe 6. I'm not quite there with the Lakers yet, even though they've been playing well lately.
Consider jump this: over to LeBron and Anthony Davis.
Yeah, I think LeBron's very old.
Yeah, no,
I think people are just like a little bit living in a fantasy world where LeBron is not 38. And if you're worried about Chris Paul's health, you should be worried about LeBron James and Anthony Davis, who have not been able to stay healthy for years and years now.
I just picked Memphis in the Western Conference Finals and fully acknowledge that, if AD averages 33 and 16 a game against the Grizzlies and just dominates them on the inside, they might lose in the first round. So, yeah.
Yeah. It's wild.
I like the Grizzlies, but definitely can't say I'm super committed or feel that strongly about these picks here.
All right, well, this is great that we get to jump over now and discuss an entirely different bracket possibility, the Denver Nuggets versus the Golden State Warriors, which is like a rematch of a extremely lopsided battle from last year where Steph Curry outdueled Facundo Campazzo and Monte Morris en route to...
Wasn't a fair fight.
Yeah, so now we at least get a fair fight with the Warriors being a year older and Denver just having their starting players back. What are your thoughts on this potential matchup?
Oh, this is I think it's going to be a very different series than last year. Denver has 2 very key players that Michael Porter Jr. played a couple games in the series against the Warriors last year, the first round series where the Nuggets lost in 5.
Zero.
He played 0? Okay. Oh, yeah. I knew he was hobbled this end of the season, but I wasn't sure if he returned.
No, he went fully out with back injuries, and I think he played like 6 or 12 games at the beginning of the season, and that was it.
Yeah, I think this is a very different series than last year. The Nuggets have significantly more talent than they had in their first round matchup last year, and honestly, as that series went on, I thought Golden State's dominance that they showed in game 1 started to wane a little bit. Jokic kind of figured out the Draymond Green matchup, and he was putting up some monster performances to close out that series. Yeah. I think Golden State is very, very poorly equipped to defend Jokic. I thought Phoenix kind of had a chance there, just with a physical body that can at least match up with Jokic's size and strength. But Golden State
at least is closer to 7 feet tall than 6'5".
Yeah. Yeah.
Looney's not huge either, though. They both got long arms.
Yeah. I don't know. I personally think I'd probably favor the Nuggets in this particular matchup if this were to happen.
Yeah, I think a couple things here. I think once again, KCP's screen navigation is going to be huge, and that it's going to curtail a little bit of like the Steph Curry, drag screen bonanza of getting wide open corner threes whenever they feel like it, or drag screens to get them open from the wing. I think again they're like one of the better teams to equip that. I think what Denver has done with how they've changed up their defensive scheme this year has moved their weak spot from the mid-range area down to the rim, which sounds like a terrible idea, but I think works out in this matchup because I think that, I don't think Golden State is one of the weaker rim scoring teams in the NBA. So they're going to be uniquely ill-suited to punish Denver for their biggest defensive weakness of rim protection. Mm-hmm. I think they can flood the nail and chase Golden State around screens, and I think Jokic will be able to play his very normal game against Golden State, regardless of Draymond Green's going to play perfect defense against Jokic, and Jokic is going to score whenever he wants.
Yeah, I mean, Jokic had some 30, 12, and 9 games against Draymond last year. That was the only time I'd ever heard Draymond say, and maybe he said it before, but the only time I've ever heard Draymond give high praise to a an individual player that he just went up against after that series was over.
LeBron's the only other one.
Okay,
he loves LeBron. He's LeBron's number one hype man, I swear. Okay. But yeah, he was giving him LeBron level praise. So I am going with Denver to make the finals despite their late season semi collapse.
It's crazy how the matchups change things because if I had Golden State and Denver in the Western Conference Finals, I'd agree with you. Just thought the matchups broke slightly differently earlier in the playoffs.
And that is the story of this year's Western Conference. Whatever, there's going to be some wild things that the Clippers could make the finals in theory if Paul George gets healthy. I don't know. Let's go over to a more real, a more likely scenario.
Oh yeah,
out in the Eastern Conference.
Eastern Conference is so much easier to predict just because both of us believe there's a clear top two there. So
yeah, I mean, I think Philly has the high end firepower to potentially pull off an upset. I'm not going to think it's crazy. I think the holes are again. I didn't pick them to win. I just think if a team has a cold shooting stretch or some injury luck could really open things up, and I think Philly would be good enough to capitalize on that. But as things stand, we both picked Milwaukee and the Celtics to make the Eastern Conference Finals. A rematch from last year. Last year there was no Chris Middleton. This year, is there Chris Middleton? Last year.
You have half of Chris Middleton.
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah, we'll see what's left of him when he gets to the final. Hopefully he bounces back because that's a big part of this team and their offense does not project the same way. But I also think Brook Lopez is an even better player than he was last year, especially on defense. But I think sometimes people forget that Brook is actually a really useful offensive tool. Whether he's spacing the floor or whether you're trying to hide a defender on him and he's just you want me to. Oh, Giannis is in foul trouble, and we have to give me 6 straight post ups. I'm going to score on 4 of those. If you try to put Mike Muscala on me, So, yeah, I don't know. These teams have been really up and down all year. I'd say early season, it was like Boston looked so much better than Milwaukee, and then Boston slumped as Milwaukee went on this sort of crazy tirade. Milwaukee kind of cooled down towards the end as they took their foot off the gas pedal, and Boston had a really strong finish in their last 15 games. It's been up and down. I think conference finals often just come down to which team showed up healthiest. Is Rob Williams going to be there? Is Chris Middleton going to be there? Is anything else going to unexpected sort of happen? But yeah, I don't know. Where are you feeling on this team? I think this is a tough series to predict.
Much like last year, I think Milwaukee's consistent inability to hit open 3-point looks that are generated by Giannis paint attacks where the defense collapses on him, I think it's going to rear its ugly head as it has for the past 5 years. This is just this unchanging thing. Giannis attacks the paint, the defense collapses on him. Every single year, Giannis has gotten progressively better and better at not just bullying into people and creating a potential charge every time, but is better at kicking those passes out accurately to open shooters. And the Bucks role players only make 30% of those. I don't necessarily see any reason why that's going to change this year because they have much the same personnel that they did last year. So yeah, I think that's really going to hurt them. And then, the Bucks are really strong with Drew and Giannis and Lopez defensively, but they don't necessarily have guys that are awesome at matching up against wings. We're talking about Jay Crowder here, potentially guarding one of Tatum or Brown. I don't necessarily love that. I think the Celtics are just kind of going to ping the ball around the perimeter and find someone who's wide open, much as they did last year. And yeah, I'm predicting the same result. I do have the Celtics advancing here.
So, I think you're bang on with the analysis of their reliance on some shaky 3-point shooting. I think you are disregarding the high end potential of this team, or the possibility of them getting hot from 3. I will point out a couple differences between last year's roster and this one. We'll start with Jay Crowder, currently shooting 43% in his 18 games with the Bucks on 3 attempts. Joe Ingles shooting 40% on 4.4 attempts. Javon Carter has been shooting 42% all year. And again, this isn't acknowledging the possible return to health of Chris Middleton. I really just don't know what's happening with that one. So and Pat Connaughton getting mothballed from the lineup, and he's always been a sort of like hit and miss 3-point shooter. So I can see a world where a lot of these options dry up, especially like, you know, Jrue Holiday is kind of hot and cold, and Bobby Portis is kind of hot and cold, but he's shooting 37% on a healthy number of attempts. So like this is kind of all of a sudden like a deep roster of players that might shoot well from three or might not. Quite a little bit more on the back end of rotation from last year. You know, they're like, you know, they're playing more non-shooters. So I think this series could very well just come down to that. Like the Bucks role players, you know, having a few hot games from three is going to make all the difference in this series. I think that that Boston has probably a better middle outcome. You know, like I think if things play out with a little bit less variability, that favors the Celtics. But I think there's some major upside to Milwaukee as a shooting team this year. And it's not like we're talking about this is a top 10 team in terms of 3-point percentage, top 4 in terms of attempts. Like they're built to bomb from three. They're not amazing at it, but like, again, it produces a high variability offense, which has been the case with them all year. They've been very up and down offensively.
Well, let me ask you this. Okay, so I think we both agree Giannis is the best player in the series. And then if we're comparing Jaylen Brown and Jrue, that's maybe a wash, you know. Jrue might even be a little bit better than Jaylen Brown, just because he's a more consistent, versatile defensive player. But I just think like the 4 through 10 guys on the Celtics roster, there's a significant talent advantage there over the Bucks. So how much can Giannis overcome that? You know, that it's really hard to overcome a team that is just better than you at a lot of positions, and that's definitely what we're seeing here.
Yeah, and I think Jason Tatum again being able. I don't think he's going to get to rim against this Milwaukee defense. I think I think Boston's offense is going to be very 3-point like oriented. I think Milwaukee is going to be able to get to the rim against Boston, just like Giannis did last year.
Yeah.
They don't have a defensive answer for Giannis. They haven't for years. I think he's going to be the clear-cut best player in the series.
Their defensive answers, they triple team him, and then they hope that Grayson Allen misses.
Yeah, never the nicest option to have to resort to. I'm going Bucks.
Okay,
I think this is. This is going to be a really fun series, and I think if the Bucks are healthy and have okay 3-point shooting luck, 38% from three in their wins and 33% in their losses. Again, very high variability offense, and so I end up with Nuggets and Bucks in the finals, and you end up with Grizzlies and Celtics, which means we have to discuss 2 more full series. And we got to wrap this up quick because I actually got to be out of here in 5 minutes. So let's discuss our potential champions, Grizzlies versus Celtics.
We'll keep it quick. Grizzlies Celtics. I can't imagine a more nightmare scenario matchup for the Grizzlies. I just think they're really going to struggle to defend all of the Celtics wings. I think the Celtics have a million bodies to throw at Ja, and I think that the Grizzlies aren't the most consistent 3-point shooting team either. They also have a bit of those woes, much like the Bucks do. I do think much like the Bucks, they'll be able to turn off a lot of the Celtics rim attacking, but I just think Bucks more solid defensive team overall, better shooting team, maybe a slight playmaking advantage as well on the Celtics side. I don't know, that might be even. And
by the way, I take it back. I've got 20 minutes. We can, so you don't need to feel rushed. My bad.
Okay. Well, I just gave away all my analysis. I also think
that was a head fake by me. I was just juke faking you into giving away all your stuff as quick as possible.
I do think the Celtics don't have any major offenders in their top 8 guys when it comes to just energy and effort. So I don't think the Grizzlies are going to be able to pound the offensive glass or sneak out and transition and get a lot of those buckets those extra possessions and extra points that they'll normally get. So I do have the Celtics finally breaking through that glass ceiling, getting over the hump and winning it this year.
Congratulations!
They've been my favorite team all year long. In our season preview,
I mean your favored team, right? Not your
yeah.
favorite team. I'm not sure you're a huge
my favorite
Celtics
team.
fan.
Yeah, no. Our preseason preview, I had them as the best team in the NBA, and I haven't really changed my stance on that.
Yeah, I think I did as well, but I definitely anticipated things being tilted more towards defense than offense, so they really flipped that on me. At this point in this theoretical playoff matchup, I just like the Boston's depth so much more than Memphis's. I feel like if Memphis gets this far, it's gonna like the rotations gonna have shortened at this point, and they're gonna be like, some of those Grizzlies are gonna become unplayable in one of these rounds. Like we see it every year. Like even teams that show up with like 9-man rotations, it's 7 by the time you get to the finals. Like maybe like David Roddy feels playable in round 1, and like somewhere along the line you just lose that rotation player, and the coach loses trust in their shot or their defense or whatever it might be. Players like that, I just feel Memphis has a lot of candidates for that. Where Boston has got some bankable, proven back end of the rotation players that I feel like they get to stay deep the entire time, and I think against a team like against Memphis, that's really going to show up. And I think that I agree, it's a bit of a nightmare matchup for the Grizzlies in a theoretical finals matchup.
Yeah, I mean the Grizzlies just have all these marginal advantages, where they just out hustle you, they get to the spot before you do, they get boards, they get backdoor cuts, they get leak outs and transition. Boston is just so much better equipped to deal with that stuff than Phoenix is. So,
yeah, agreed.
Yep. All right, Nuggets Bucks. This is an interesting one.
Yeah, I think this was my preseason pick as well. So showing my bias. I think I still had Boston winning out the regular season, but I think I had Bucks Nuggets as my pick all year. And yeah, this is a very interesting one. I haven't actually thought that much about this matchup, and I think even when I did this out a couple times, I didn't come to this conclusion in preparing for this podcast episode. So yeah, any thoughts on Bucks versus Nuggets?
I don't know why this series is so hard to like come up with thoughts on the spot on how they'll match up. Just because, they played a couple times this season, but guys were out and resting, I believe, in like all those matchups. So I'm not sure that we necessarily like have a good proof of concept for what this necessarily even looks like.
I think in theory, the just Giannis's ability to pressure the rim against one of the worst rim defenses in the NBA is the first thing that I'd look at.
Yeah.
I just think that's a major clear advantage for the Bucks in this one. That's going to just like. I think the Nuggets, even though there's like everyone's worried about the Nuggets versus the mid-range attack of Phoenix or the mid-range attack of Golden State, I'm more worried about the idea of them against a real rim punisher, because they haven't been able to they just gave up on guarding the rim structurally this year. So yeah, I think that's going to really hurt them. I think that Jokic is always going to make any defense look a little bit silly, especially with shooting around him. So I do think that this isn't a blow, but I'm definitely leaning towards Milwaukee in this matchup. I just think that.
I also think another advantage that Milwaukee has is their change in defensive style this year, where they're giving up less threes and they're trying to force teams more into mid-range shots. Really smart, and should really help them in this series, because if they were just allowing Nuggets to fire away with wide open catch and shoot threes off of passes delivered by Jokic, I'd probably give Denver more of a chance in this series. But Milwaukee's adjusted their defense, even with the holes that they do have. I don't think that Denver necessarily has the personnel to really take advantage of those holes nearly as well as Boston does. So,
well, I will say they have probably the best mid-range shooter to ever play the game, like by a wide margin to ever play the game, in Nikola Jokic. In that, what we've never seen Denver do in the playoffs, because we basically don't really have any clean data on Denver in the playoffs since the bubble run, and that's a long time ago now, and it's sort of a different player. But I've always wondered, can the Nuggets do the opposite of what they try to do and come out and use Jokic primarily as a pressure attack scorer, and then go out from there? Because it always seems to be their game plan to use Jokic to make him responsible for offense at the team level, and then punish when they don't cover Jokic enough. If Jokic just comes out and just I'm gonna bomb my goofy elbow jumper floater thing over and over and over again until I start collapsing Milwaukee's defense and then start picking apart, I think that's a little bit interesting. I think the Nuggets are, because of Jokic, are built well to score from anywhere.
Yeah.
I just don't know if they're going to produce offense against Milwaukee's defense that is going to be better than the offense that Milwaukee is going to produce against Denver's defense. I just see a more balanced team on one side. I think Milwaukee's offense has all sorts of opportunities against janky against Boston, but I don't see it. I think I see smooth sailing for Milwaukee's offense against Denver.
Fair enough. Yeah. I mean, I think that Murray might really struggle in this series. Just
interesting. Why? Oh, yeah. Fair enough.
Any outside chance of Bubble Murray appearing, well, that probably would have happened earlier in the playoffs anyway. But yeah, this Milwaukee is well equipped to deal with that.
I'm also worried about Jamal Murray's knee over the course of the he's been struggling to really get that clean bill of health all year, and so I don't love the idea of him deep in the playoffs. But I do think if Jamal Murray figures it out again and not even goes Bubble Murray, but just becomes sort of a little bit more consistently useful in the playoffs, that changes Denver's ceiling a little bit. But yeah, I'm picking Bucks.
Okay, you have Bucks over Nuggets for your champion. I have Celtics over Grizzlies. Two very different outcomes. Even though we started kind of the same, we ended up diverging a little bit as the playoffs went on.
Thank goodness, no one can accuse us of being, boring for the sake of lack of variety. At least.
Oh man, it was chalk in the first round. 0 upsets.
Yeah,
not even a 5 seed over a 4 seed.
No, we had a 6 seed over a 3.
Oh, that's true. In terms of regular season record, okay, there's one upset, but
yeah. All right, that wraps up our part 2 of our playoff preview, playoff predictions. Any final thoughts on this year's playoffs, Simon, before we sign off?
I hope I'm wrong.
Who do you want to win? Who are you rooting for on both sides?
Who's the heart pick? Oh, I would love to see Cleveland upset Milwaukee. I wanted to call that just because I think that would be so much fun to see Donovan Mitchell redemption tour, to see all these young guys, get some real action against the Celtics. Didn't see it happening, obviously. I would like to see, I'm not a huge Embiid fan, but I would like to see Embiid make a playoff run. I would love to see the Celtics fall to the 76ers. Whether it's Milwaukee or Cleveland that they're facing, either way, it would be cool to see Embiid make a deep playoff run. It's never happened for him. Obviously, I'm not predicting it to happen this year, but I would like to see that happen.
I would love, Philly-Denver finals.
Oh, yeah. That'd be incredible.
If we're going just for drama, if we want just drama and fans ripping each other's faces off and their own faces off, that's the move. And both those teams have all sorts of holes, so it would be a crazy series. And I think my heart also, Cleveland is my favorite team in the Eastern side of things, so I'll be rooting for them in every series until they go out.
Yeah.
And, my Denver enthusiasm has sort of waned a little bit over the year, but they're still probably my heart pick on the West side. So I guess I'm rooting for a Denver-Cleveland finals.
I would also pick the Clippers for a heart pick.
The Clippers?
Yeah.
The Clippers are your heart pick?
Well, I mean, just over the Suns, in that one matchup. It would be cool to see, Kawhi succeed and conquer Kevin Durant. He's always kind of been a little bit of a little brother. Kevin Durant has long had this kind of status as the second best player in the NBA, even though personally I would, a couple years ago when it was LeBron number 1, who's number 2, I personally would have picked Kawhi when healthy. But
there were a few years though where it was heading into the playoffs, I was LeBron, Durant, and Kawhi, the 3 monster wings.
Yeah, there's 3 years in a row
fighting to claim supremacy, and then it was always one of them was hurt. We never really got a whole lot of drama out of that. I think 2 or 3 years, and
Kawhi and LeBron never met in the playoffs after Kawhi ascended to
superstardom. That still kills me.
I was waiting when Kawhi was young and was averaging 12 points a game, but they never played when Kawhi was Kawhi. unfortunately.
But Kawhi played well enough in that matchup to give, like either Kawhi fans or LeBron haters this like mythos of like Kawhi will be the one to embarrass LeBron on the big stage. And we never even got the Battle of LA. Like that's like we didn't even get that. And that's Nikola Jokic's fault, but
it's also the Clippers' fault. Like, come on, a lot of people love to kind of excuse the Clippers for the bubble, but it was pretty clear they didn't take it as seriously and didn't prepare as well as the Nuggets, and that's what happens.
Yeah, I've never understood why teams got either docked or given benefits of the doubt for the bubble. Like, everyone had the same conditions. Like, just give the teams that won the credit they deserve, and the teams that lost the, scorn they deserve. Like, everyone was just as likely to be, depressed or worn down, or it was a smooth level of competition field. No one had an advantage.
And also, you can't claim to be the best player or the best team if that's only true when you're in a clean, nice gym where all the fans are behaving and there's no one yelling at you. If you're not the best player, if you can't take it outside and play on the blacktop and be the best player, then what are we arguing about?
If my mommy doesn't tuck me into bed every night, I cannot play basketball. So that's basically what I felt. And I've got immense sympathy for some players talking about how difficult the bubble was. Like, that was, despite the banquets every day, being away from your family and being in this weirdness and amidst all the political turmoil, I understand it. But in terms of just basketball competition, they all had those same advantages and disadvantages. So I just don't think you need to overthink it. It's like a team beat another team. They outplayed them. We don't need to dig in too much deeper than that outside of the sort of realm of basketball competition.
I love how he took my heart pick of the Clippers winning into an opportunity to just hate on the Clippers.
Your heart. So you wanted the Clippers going all the way, winning in the final.
It would just be cool to see Kawhi beat KD. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll be rooting for the Clippers in that. Kawhi has, hurt me many times. Both leaving the Spurs hurt me. I was very excited about the Spurs to continue sort of being the Spurs. Mm-hmm. And him leaving the Raptors hurt me again. I live in Toronto. I was dancing in the streets during that playoff run, and him leaving and plunging the Raptors into mediocrity hurt. And the Clippers are not a team that I ever root for, and but I still, part of me still loves Kawhi and can't help but root for him in these playoff series. Yeah. So I would also enjoy that.
I also love the idea of Russell Westbrook donning the cupcake shirt one last time.
Yeah, there's potential drama in that. Russ versus KD. I don't think this one's going to go Russ's way though in that individual matchup. But the Clippers have a chance to beat the Suns, I think.
Yeah.
I don't think that would be crazy. It would take some things going the Clippers' way, I think. But we'll see soon. Again, we're so excited right now. The playoffs are it's all we wait for all year. All we're predicting. Everything leads up to this moment. I will say that in a couple weeks when we've watched 20 basketball games and just been what am I doing with my life? Mm-hmm. And my girlfriend is running out of patience, and I'm falling behind on homework and things like that. It's going to get a bit much, but from now I'm just going to enjoy the excitement, and I hope everyone else is doing the same at home.
Yeah, no, really looking forward to Kings Warriors. That's my series I really want to focus in on the first round. So
yeah,
same. There should be some good ones. Okay,
yeah.
Well, thanks everyone for watching our head picks and listening to our brief heart picks, and we hope to come back after maybe near the conclusion of the first round and catch up on how things have gone.
Yeah, and please, we've been telling you all season this, but it matters most right now. For the next couple months, ball is life.
We'll see you on the other side. Thanks for watching.